Okay, so picture this. You're on this, like, luxury yacht, right? Cruising through the Caribbean, sun's out, maybe sipping on something fancy. When, bam, a freak wave hits, and you're overboard. You're all alone, clinging to a piece of driftwood, just you and the cries of the gulls overhead. And get this, in the distance, through the salt spray, you see it. A dark, mysterious island.
Oh, that's ominous. I don't like where this is going.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Yeah.
But there's a light, a single flickering light coming from deep within the island's jungle, and it leads you to, wait for it, an imposing mansion.
Okay, hold on. That took a turn. Are we talking haunted house vibes or like Lost Millionaire vibes?
And that's the beauty of it. You don't know. And this, my friend, is just the beginning of what Richard Connell throws at you in The Most Dangerous Game.
Ugh, The Most Dangerous Game. I see where we're going with this. It's not exactly subtle foreshadowing, is it?
Nope, not at all. But trust me, even though you might guess where things are headed, the journey there is what makes this story a wild ride. And speaking of the journey, before we get too deep into the island, let's talk about the author for a sec. Richard Connell, master of suspense, king of the short story, especially back in the early 1900s.
He really cranked those out, didn't he? I mean, we're talking hundreds of stories.
Seriously, the man was a writing machine. But, and I think a lot of folks would agree with me here, The Most Dangerous Game is his masterpiece. It's the kind of story that just sticks with you. You know, it makes you think about things differently, especially when it comes to hunting, survival, and just how dark the human heart can get.
And isn't that the mark of any great piece of literature? It's not just about the plot. It's about what it makes you feel, the questions it raises long after you've finished reading.
100%. So are you ready to dive into the excerpts we've got from Anna's archive?
Lead the way. Let's get into it.
All right, so we start off with our main man, Sanger Rainsford. He's a big game hunter, like world-renowned, the best of the best. He's on his way to a hunting trip in the Amazon, excited, you know, ready for adventure. And then, bam, he gets thrown overboard.
Yeah, that'll put a damper on your hunting trip.
Totally. So there he is, stranded on this spooky island, and he eventually stumbles upon this mansion, like I was saying. And it's weird, right? It's almost too perfect, too grand, especially in the middle of nowhere. Well, here's something else to keep in mind. Right before Rainsford ends up on this crazy island, he's having this conversation with his buddy Whitney, also a hunter. And they're talking about, well, hunting. But Whitney, he's kind of uneasy about the whole thing.
Oh, how so?
Well, Whitney's wondering, like, do the animals they hunt feel fear? Do they understand what's happening? And Rainsford, he kind of brushes it off, you know? He's all about the thrill of the hunt, the challenge, that sort of thing.
Classic Rainsford.
Exactly. But, man, that conversation, it really sets the stage for everything that's about to go down.
You think that conversation's more than just chit-chat, huh?
Oh, I do. It's Connell is setting up this debate right from the start. Like, he's asking us, what do we think about hunting? Is it as simple as we think it is? And then, boom, Rainsford finds himself in a situation where he's not the hunter anymore. He's the hunted.
Ooh, I see where you're going with this. And suddenly, all those questions about fear and survival, they hit a lot differently, don't they?
You got it. But we're getting ahead of ourselves a bit. Let's talk about the mansion, and more importantly, the guy who lives there. So Rainsford stumbles into this mansion, exhausted, starving, probably a little terrified, and he's greeted by this.
Well, how would you describe General Zaroff?
Oh man, Zaroff. He's like the definition of charming but creepy. You know, the kind of guy who could talk you into anything, but you get this weird feeling in your gut the whole time. Nailed it! He's like a character straight out of some Gothic novel. Refined, sophisticated, but with this underlying menace.
Oh, yeah. Definitely some menace lurking beneath that polished exterior.
Totally. And he welcomes Rainsford in, you know, offers him food, dry clothes, a place to rest. But there's this tension, this feeling that something is just off. And that, my friend, is before Zaroff reveals his new game. But I think we should save that little bombshell for the next part of our deep dive.
Agreed. I think we've left our listeners with plenty to chew on for now. So you're telling me Zaroff has something even more unsettling planned than a creepy mansion in the middle of nowhere. My curiosity is officially piqued.
Oh, you better believe it, because remember how Zaroff is this, like, world-class hunter, right?
Yeah, bored out of his mind, if I recall correctly.
Exactly. He's gotten bored with hunting animals. He even says it himself. Too predictable. Not enough of a challenge for a man of his intellect.
Okay, that's sending chills down my spine. And I'm guessing this new game of his involves something a little more human.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. Yep. Zaroff hunts people.
There's a reason this story is called The Most Dangerous Game, and I think we're starting to understand why.
For sure. But let's unpack this a little bit, because Zaroff doesn't just go around snatching people all willy-nilly.
Oh, he has rules. Please, do tell. This should be good.
Oh, yeah, he's got rules, Ari. It's all very civilized, brandy in the parlor, that kind of thing. And he gives them a sporting chance.
Sporting chance. That's one way to put it. So what's the catch?
Well, he lets his guests have a head start. A few hours, maybe a day, depending on how generous he's feeling. He gives them some supplies, a hunting knife, some food, and then turns them loose in the jungle.
And then the fun begins.
Right. And if they manage to survive for 3 days without getting caught, he lets them go.
Just like that. A free pass for outsmarting a psychopath. Seems a little too easy, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, there's another little detail Zaroff casually mentions. See, if Rainsford refuses to play his little game, let's just say Ivan is very eager to get his hands dirty.
Ah, Ivan. Zaroff's loyal and rather imposing servant, if memory serves.
That's our guy. Big, burly, and not exactly known for his gentle touch. I think you can connect the dots there.
I think I can. So Rainsford is given a choice. Become the prey in a twisted game orchestrated by a madman, or face the wrong end of Ivan's displeasure. Yeah. Tough call.
Talk about a no-win situation, right?
And here we see Connell laying bare those primal instincts we were talking about. Survival, fear, the lengths we'll go to when our backs are against the wall.
Absolutely. So what do you think? What would you do if you were in Rainsford's shoes?
Honestly, I don't know. Part of me wants to say I'd face Zaroff head on, But then I remember that glint in his eye when he talks about hunting.
Oh, yeah, there's definitely some screws loose there.
And Ivan, well, he's not exactly the kind of guy you want to have a disagreement with.
Nope, not at all. So Rainsford, understandably, chooses the hunt. He figures, hey, at least it's a fighting chance, right?
Right, and that's where the real story begins.
Okay, so now we're talking a full-on game of cat and mouse through this dense jungle island. Connell doesn't hold back on the suspense, let me tell you.
I imagine. It's got to be a page-turner, right?
Oh, yeah, you're on the edge of your seat. We see Rainsford using everything he knows about hunting, but this time, he's not tracking some wild animal. He's trying to outsmart another human being who's just as skilled, if not more so.
It's like a twisted chess match with life or death stakes. And I imagine this whole experience forces Rainsford to confront his own beliefs about hunting, doesn't it?
100%. Because now he's the one being stalked, the one feeling that primal fear every animal he's ever hunted must have felt. And it changes him. You can see it in the story. He starts questioning everything. The thrill of the hunt, the idea of sport, even his own humanity.
And all the while, Zaroff is hot on his trail, reveling in the chase. It's almost like he's more interested in testing Rainsford's skills than actually catching him.
Oh, totally. It's like Zaroff sees this whole thing as some kind of intellectual exercise. He even starts leaving Rainsford little clues, like he wants to see how long it takes Rainsford to figure it out.
Which makes it even more disturbing, right? Zaroff isn't some bloodthirsty savage. He's enjoying the intellectual challenge, the manipulation.
Exactly. And that's what makes him so terrifying. He's a monster wearing a human mask. But back to the story, things get even crazier. At one point, Rainsford sets this elaborate trap, a Burmese tiger pit.
Oh, those are nasty.
Yeah, if you don't know what you're dealing with, they can be deadly. But guess what?
Zaroff sees right through it.
Well, almost. He manages to avoid it, but one of his prized hunting hounds falls right into the trap.
Ouch. Not good for the hound. But what about Zaroff? How does he react?
He's totally unfazed. Like, it's just a minor inconvenience. He even commends Rainsford on the cleverness of the trap.
Seriously. The man's a psychopath.
No doubt about it. But even though Rainsford is fighting for his life, using every dirty trick he can think of, Zaroff is still impressed. He sees Rainsford as a worthy opponent, maybe even an equal.
Which is a terrifying thought when you really think about it. Because it means Rainsford, in order to survive, might have to become the very thing he's running from.
And that's the question Connell leaves us with, isn't it? How far would we go to survive? Would we be willing to sacrifice our own humanity if it meant living another day?
But we'll have to save those questions for our next deep dive, because I think we're running out of time here. So, last time, we left off with Rainsford, our intrepid hunter-turned-prey, taking a swan dive off a cliff into the raging sea below. A desperate move, to be sure, but when you're being hunted by a guy like Zaroff, desperate times call for desperate measures, right?
100%. But here's the thing. Rainsford pulls a Houdini. He survives the fall.
No way. I did not see that coming. Zaroff doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who checks for a pulse after a stunt like that.
Nope, Zaroff thinks Rainsford is fish food. He goes back to his mansion, maybe pours himself a celebratory drink. Who knows? The guy's unpredictable. But while Zaroff is relaxing, feeling all smug about his victory, Rainsford, well, he swims ashore and starts planning his next move.
Okay, the tables have officially turned. I am not sure I'd want to be in Zaroff's perfectly polished shoes when Rainsford catches up with him.
You and me both. And catch up he does. Remember how Zaroff loves those opulent surroundings? Well, Rainsford uses that to his advantage. He sneaks into the mansion, into Zaroff's bedroom no less, and waits for him to return.
Talk about a terrifying homecoming.
Yeah.
I bet Zaroff's ego took a major hit that night.
I'm sure it did. But you know what's really interesting about this ending? Connell leaves it open to interpretation.
What do you mean?
Well, we know Rainsford confronts Zaroff in his bedroom, right? But Connell doesn't actually tell us what happens next. Did Rainsford kill Zaroff, becoming a hunter of men himself just to survive, or did he find another way out, maybe disappearing into the jungle, leaving Zaroff to stew in his own madness?
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like that. It's like Connell is giving us this choice, too. Do we want a clear-cut ending, a satisfying resolution? Or are we okay with the ambiguity, the lingering question of what becomes of both Rainsford and Zaroff?
Exactly. And I think that's part of what makes The Most Dangerous Game such a powerful story. It stays with you long after you finish reading it. You find yourself thinking about the characters, about the choices they made, about what you would have done in their situation.
And isn't that the mark of truly great storytelling? It sparks these conversations, makes us question our own beliefs and assumptions.
It's like Connell is holding a mirror up to human nature, showing us both the darkness and the light that exist within us all.
And let's be real. There's a reason this story has resonated with readers for almost a century. It's a reminder that sometimes the most dangerous game we play isn't out in the wilderness, it's within ourselves.
So well said. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into The Most Dangerous Game. Hopefully we've given you plenty to think about, maybe even inspired you to seek out the story for yourself.
And if you do, be sure to come back and share your thoughts. We'd love to hear your take on this classic tale of suspense, morality, and the primal instincts that bind us all.